Hi, and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, brought to you by GamblersWorld.net, our sponsor site where you could find 10 of the finest handicappers, including myself and Chip Chirimbes over at GamblersWorld.net. Today, we are also joined by fellow sports betting expert, Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, who's with us every Monday and Thursday. And right now, Chipper, hopefully everything stays well with his health, and going forward, he'll be with us every Monday and Thursday as well. Boy, oh boy, all of us with health issues lately. It comes with the territory. In any event, Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross, and a lot of good things going on. Just in general, so the Major League Baseball, a nice little 5-2 move here. Got back over the hump on a winning record so far, and I had somebody that was complaining at me the other day saying, "Hey, you know what? You're not doing very well in baseball." It's like, and I responded, "Well, it's April the 17th. Let's take it easy here, okay?
Yeah.
We don't have to panic yet, but let's just figure it out." So that is good. NBA starting to make a little bit of a push here at 4-2. Again, not big streaks, but hey, always like to go in the right direction, and have a noted playoff record over the years. So that's good. And then all props 60%. Okay, going tonight. Going in general, was it 18 weeks? Yeah, last 18 weeks on props. So, and in fact, tonight I have one in Major League Baseball. So that's going well. And, hey, just a number of things going in the right direction. And with the NHL playoffs, I've talked about it here countless times. My best bet record has been phenomenal, 24-12 going into the playoffs. A couple of monitors. I just finished in the top 10 in a couple of monitors that I belong to in the NHL. So really nice season there. And then just going to hope to just keep it turned up for the NHL playoffs.
I'm sure you will, Doug, and it's all good news, and I love to hear it. And again, you could find Doug Upstone, who's the lone exception here on our podcast that's not on GamblersWorld.net because he's under contract by Doc Sports. And if you've never heard of Doc Sports, then you don't know a lot about sports betting because they've been in business for 53 years or so.
Yep.
And longevity speaks volumes in this industry. And speaking about longevity speaks volumes, Mr. Chip Chirimbes, we won't get into the exact or precise amount of longevity other than to say, I know I'm younger than him, and I don't remember or recall, and I've been following the sports betting industry even before I got into it, and I don't ever recall Chip not being a part of it. Chipper, how are you, my man?
I'm great. Thank you very much, Ross. Things are really moving along. Hit 4 of the last 5 Major League Baseball megabuck plays, and 8-3 in the NBA, making a postseason run right here. Big winner with Miami last night. I know you had Chicago, which was a great play. You gave it to me earlier in the week. And, it just seems like it's our time now. The baseball season's just getting underway, and the big games and the big money are on the line. And that's usually when we shine, Ross, because we have garnered all the information from the entire season. We have a resume of these teams having met each other a number of times, and it all comes to fruition here. And I think it's the best time of the year for us.
Yeah, you always say big games, big game cappers. And I like to think all 3 of us are in that category, when we could really hone in and they condense the schedule and give us these matchups. And we know who's playing on a nightly basis and who's not going to be available is the transparency is at its highest at this time of year. It's never easy, but it puts us in a more favorable position. I guess that's what I'm looking for. But Chipper cashing in with those mega buck plays, folks. You got to follow those. That's his top play. He used to call him the A play back in the day. He's since evolved into megabucks plays. And at the end of the day, it's his best pick of the day, which he does on a daily basis. And you want to keep an eye on that. My NBA playoffs, people say when you start talking about records, you're bragging. Again, we're in this business to win, and we get criticized immensely if we don't, and rightfully so. Sometimes unfairly, but it is what it is. We deal with it. But my NBA playoffs the last 2 years, folks, 76. Where am I here? 79 and 51. Counting the 2-1 so far, in the playoffs, 76-51, 60.8%. And that's made dime players a lot of money. And so I was 2-0 last night. Started off with a loser on Tuesday, but I did hit with Chicago last night, an easy winner. And I also had the over in the Philadelphia game. And as Chip says, I had it all the way. But any event, a winner's a winner. And we don't get paid for extra style points, even though I would have loved to on Chicago. And nobody's chasing you down the aisle when you lose by 50 and asking you for more money either, right? So in any event, keep an eye on all three of us, me and Chip over at gamblersworld.net, Doug over at docsports.com. Speaking of gamblersworld.net, folks, we have to pay the bills here. So gamblersworld.net is our sponsor site. Right now, any of our great handicappers over at gamblersworld.net, you can get our NBA playoff packets for just $195. And that will take you right through the NBA finals. So I know a couple of you chimed in yesterday and bought this package, and let's make some money. And if you haven't already, I don't know what you're waiting for, because you got 10 of the best handicappers in the world on gamblersworld.net. Also, folks, just a friendly reminder, at gamblersworld.net, there we guarantee all our picks. So all of our 3-day, 7-day, and 30-day packages, if you don't win, you don't make a profit, we will credit back your account the exact amount of your purchase price. And that goes for also our single game and daily game packages as well. So again, like I like to say, that's not a sign of weakness or a lack of confidence. That's our confidence in telling you, okay, if you catch us on a bad day and your timing isn't right, or you catch us on a bad week, even a bad month, we all have them at one time or another, we will credit back your account, and we're confident that we'll make you money by you being able to do that. So, all right, let's get to the games in hand. And we got 3 of them, and 2 of them go on Saturday. I'll be talking about the Indiana-Milwaukee game that goes Sunday. Chipper, he's going to look at the Suns and T-Wolves. And Doug, we're going to start with you, the Magic and the Cavs. Right now, the Cavs Cleveland Cavaliers are a minus 4.5 point home favorite, and the total 207.5. And the Cavs have played very well when healthy. Okay. And Orlando's been one of those teams. They seem to be the darling of the NBA right now in terms of overachieving and a nice underdog to squeeze for at this time of year. Mm-hmm. So, Doug, what's your take on just not the series, but this one particular matchup?
Well, even in the series, Ross, I mean, you got, I was a little surprised. I mean, you got a 4-5 matchup here, and Cleveland, last I looked, was a minus 220 favorite in the series, which seemingly is, that's typically a little bit high for a 4-5 matchup in this one. Cavaliers came down the stretch 5-8 and 4-9 against the spread. There seems to be some locker room issues on this team because Donovan Mitchell has come out, said basically he's not going to sign another contract with them. He wants to be a free agent. And he missed some time towards the end of the season, but he also missed some time early in the season. And Cleveland didn't miss a step. But so seems to be something else going on with this team. And, they haven't played that well down the stretch. As you mentioned, Cleveland's a 4.5 point favorite. If you look at the home road dichotomy of these two teams, when Cleveland is at home, they have won by 3.9 points per game. When Orlando has been on the road, they have lost by an average of 3.4 points per game. So we're pretty much right, in the realm of where the spread should be based on those factors. Some believe that the Orlando can win this series based on their defense. Now, the Magic are 4th in points allowed, giving up just 108 points per game. Number 3 in steals, number 7 in blocks, and number 2 in defensive efficiency. Orlando, though, is not on a roll either coming into this series. They're 5-7 and 4-8 against the spread. For me, the key to this series is the guard tempo. If Cleveland can run enough and get the transition game going, the Magic guards just aren't good enough, especially when it comes to scoring in this one. So I'll take Cleveland for the series. But for game 1, which is Ross has made it clear that that's the most important thing I'm supposed to talk about here. So in this one, Cleveland, they purposely lost their last game of the regular season to set up to avoid Indiana and to play Orlando. I think that's going to matter a lot to Orlando in this game. Okay. Orlando plays better when they slow the tempo. That's part of the reason why they only gave up 108 points per game. Orlando comes into this one 41-22 as an underdog of 3.5 to 9.5 points the last two seasons. So I'm going to say this is a 2-point game either way. I'm going to take the Magic plus the 4.5 in game one of this series.
All right. So Doug, again, it's game one pick, folks. It's not the series, but Doug is taking the Orlando Magic plus 4.5 against Cleveland. And Doug is going to go with the Sean Higgs theory that Cleveland lost the last game on purpose. It's a conspiracy. And I don't know, Doug, do you know that for a fact that they lost the last game on purpose? Or is that just because
they didn't play any regular? Well, they had a lead in the fourth quarter and they didn't play any regulars.
I got that. So it's fair enough. Fair enough.
So, I mean, listen, you can insinuate it at least.
Yeah.
It's not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Not for sure on that. But I just think they wanted to avoid him. And I don't think that's a bad choice, to be perfectly honest. Not sure I would do that as an NBA player or, want to do that. But, hey, that's what they did. So here we are. Cleveland's playing Orlando.
At least you're not taking it another level like Sean does and tells me that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill JFK. Anyway, Chipper, I'm not asking your opinion on who killed JFK, but I'm asking your opinion. Do you have any thoughts in terms of this matchup for game one?
I certainly have an opinion on this. I have a few comments on a few things that Doug said. Orlando's, they're called the Magic, and they're not doing it with mirrors this year. I can tell you that, Ross. I mean, this team is 51-31 against the number. So they've really come on as far as the odds makers are concerned. They made a great draft pick when they took that point guard out of Duke when unexpectedly number one a couple of years ago. And they've really turned it around. Now, this Cleveland definitely went in the tank the last game, Ross. They had an 18-point lead, and they removed everybody. So, I don't know if Lee Harvey Oswald is spinning around right now, but the Magic were third overall in defense, like Doug had said, and that plays a big part in this. This Cleveland team is 18-23 at home against the number, and the Magic have been so good on the road. I lean toward the Magic here. They did crush Milwaukee, and you want to talk about a laydown. The Magic, which I gave out as a big play against Milwaukee for the final game of the season, Milwaukee just didn't show up and didn't care about the number 2 seed. I mean, Rivers had even announced he doesn't care where they're seated going into that game. And I'm a little skeptical of a team that plays somebody that didn't play hard the last time out and wins bigs like they did. And now they're playing another team that laid down last time out. I think most likely I would play the under in this game, Ross. I'm really confused a little bit about the side because Cleveland laid down for a reason. Orlando's so good on the road, and all of those factors that Doug gave about the defense. I'm going to play this one under.
Yeah, well, the total is 214. So our official pick, the total is 207.5. Very low total.
Yeah.
And so Chipper's got to lean toward the under 207.5, but our official pick comes from Mr. Upstone, and he likes the Magic plus the 4.5 in game one at Cleveland. And I can assure you one thing. I'll listen to all these conspiracy theories, all everybody wants to tell me, but I know one thing for sure, Chip. If you tell me that Jack Ruby didn't shoot Lee Harvey Oswald, then you have a serious mental issue because that occurred on national television.
I don't know if you were born yet, but I actually saw that.
I did too. I was 6 years old. I was watching it with my grandfather. I thought it was, realizing the enormity of that years later, Chip. Yeah. At that particular moment in time, 6 years old, you think you're watching a TV program where somebody shoots another guy. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize what a I don't know. I don't want to call it epic, but it was just an enormous and tragic event. But in any event, let's get back to the NBA and stop with the conspiracy theories. And Chip lights up when we start talking about stuff in the 60s. Anyway, Doug, again, he likes Cavs minus 4.5 over the Magics.
Other way around.
Or excuse me, the Magic plus 4.5 over the Cavs. See, you start getting me on this conspiracy theory stuff, and I get all bent out of shape. Anyway, Suns at the T-Wolves. Game 1, Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. The T-Wolves, 1.5 point favorite. The total 214. Chipper, I mean, I thought of you when I looked at this line right off the bat. Chip's got to be going, how is the T-Wolves only -1.5? They're begging you to take Minnesota here.
Yeah, and here's a team, Minnesota Timberwolves, that were tied with the best record in the West, could have possibly had the home court overall. The way things worked out, of course, they didn't end up third. And like you said, they're only 1.5 point favorite. They closed the season against this Suns team, and the Suns team went into Minnesota and just absolutely routed them, 125-106. Bradley Beal had like the game of the season that day. He was 6 for 6 from the 3-point range. He had 36 points overall. And I'm wondering, can he repeat that kind of performance? Minnesota dropping first to third. By the way, Anthony Edwards in that game had 13 points, which kept him from scoring 26 on an average for the year. He ended up 25.9. I don't think that's going to affect his attitude at all toward this game. But I'm looking at the total here, and I'll tell you why. Because in the last 10 meetings they've had, their total has ranged between 222 and 239. And in this contest, it's 214, which is telling me that's a dramatic drop. And it looks like the odds makers believe that they're going to be playing playoff defense, which you know what happens, Ross. Sometimes these teams are averaging 120 points and they get in playoffs and their whole mentality changes and they score 91 points. I think that the average for the most part in the playoffs is much lower than the regular season as far as the total is concerned. Phoenix, by the way, has beaten this team 9 of the last 10 times they've played them, and they've covered the last 9 in a row. And that's an incredible trend to be even bucking or even going with, because you have to be turning around, figuring out, am I ready to get back, hit off waylaid in the back of the head with a shovel here? Because this team's won 9 straight, and then it's a big game for Minnesota. They got crushed. Minnesota's 41-40 at home against the number. I think this game may stay under the total because of that price. You know, Ross, we talked about lines and interpreting lines, and maybe the 1.5 is like you said, but I think the 214 is even more telling considering the history between these two teams.
Yeah. Minnesota for much of the year was the number 1 defensive team in all the NBA, and people lose sight of that. You know, Doug, you're close to the situation there in Phoenix. And, Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, the terrific 3. But to keep those 3, acquire and keep Booker and Durant, they gave up a lot in terms of quality depth. They're not the same team in terms of quality depth they've been in years past. And again, at this time of year, these guys are going to play major minutes. But your thoughts on this matchup and anything that Chip had to say along the lines. And by the way, our official pick from Chip Chirimbes on that game is the Suns and T-Wolves under 214. Doug?
Yeah, and this one, well, this is one of 2 series, at least that we have odds on, and where the lower seed is actually the favorite to win the series. So that's interesting as well. And at least out here, one thing that's been talked about quite a bit in the Phoenix area is that Phoenix is more of a finesse team and built for the playoffs, where Minnesota is more physical but built for the long term. So there's a thought out, at least that I hear a lot out here, is that Phoenix is in a good situation here facing this type of opponent. Chip brought up, the domination of Phoenix, how they've handled Minnesota, and it's not just this year, it's been 3 years, okay, that they've done that. The other thing too about the line, Chip raised the question, is that only a 1.5 point favorite. And when you consider that Minnesota was one of the best home court teams this year at 30-11 straight up, that is another telling aspect. I would be inclined to lean with Phoenix, but my official pick here is going to be Kevin Durant over 23.5 points. And the main reason for that, in 12 of the last 13 games, playoff games that he's been in, he has surpassed that total. I think he does it again. So give me officially over 23.5 for Kevin Durant.
And I would say if he doesn't go over 23.5, that would favor Minnesota as an end result. So it goes hand in hand. Chip, you made a good point that when you look at the previous totals between these two teams and where it was and now where it is right now, more or less the odds makers are saying, well, we're not going to see the same style of basketball in this game that we saw during the regular season. The same thing could have been said for the Chicago-Atlanta game yesterday. I mean, that total was only 220.5. And if you look, I mean, they played high-scoring games in the regular season, and the totals were all in the 230s. And it still went over. But it's a different scenario because neither Chicago or Atlanta is going to be mistaken as one of the better defensive teams in the league. And Minnesota has certainly shown how good they are defensively. And, you know, the difference between what Doug described, there's two series right now where the lower seeds are the favorite, which is unusual. But the other, I'm assuming the other series you're referring to is the Indiana Pacers and Bucks, right?
Well, no, I actually was referring to Dallas.
Dallas.
Yeah, because
well, even Indiana, it's sort of a even series. I mean, because I know when I gave out a free pick on Monday, I gave out the Indiana Pacers at plus 180, and then Giannis got ruled out. I talked to you about this, Chipper, and now it's down to Indiana being just plus 105. So again, the circumstances in terms of that series, which is predicated more on star power being out of the lineup, and Giannis and Dallas just is, I like them as a long shot to come out of the West. I mean, long shot plus 650. I would consider plus 650 if you can get that to win a conference title. It's a lot of value. So in any event, I don't have a strong opinion at this point on this game. But we're going to go with our official pick here from Mr. Chirimbes, and he likes the Suns in T-Wolves game to go under 214. So there you have it. All right, I'm going to look at my game here, if you guys don't mind. Indiana-Milwaukee. We just talked about this, and, you know, we saw this open up with Milwaukee as a 3-point favorite. They're now a 1-point underdog. Of course, that was not money. That's not a money move. That's the fact that Giannis has been ruled out. And right now, Indiana, with the total in this game being 233, which is high for a postseason game, but rightfully so. I'm going to look at the team total here, guys, and go in a little different direction. And it's specifically Indiana's team total, which is 116.5 right now. These teams have met 4 times this year. Indiana's scored 122 points or more in all 4 games. During those 4 contests, they averaged 129 points per game, 97.3 field goal attempts per contest against Milwaukee in those 4 games. Folks, that's a frenetic pace. And then also they got to the free throw line in those 4 games 32.3 times per contest on average, which is an enormous number to get to the free throw line on average over a 4-game span against any one opponent. Indiana, over their last 5 games, averaged 132 points per contest, 55% shooting, and 37.8% from beyond the 3-point arc. Milwaukee, on the other hand, is allowing 120.8 points per game in 17 games versus division opponents this year. One of the most disappointing aspects of Milwaukee's game, in my opinion, it has been their play on the defensive side. If you remember a couple of years ago when they made the championship run to win the title, defensively, they were just tremendous throughout the postseason. This is also an Indiana team that scored 117 points or more in 55 of 81 games this year. That's 68% of the games they played during the regular season, and there was 82 of them, 55 out of 82, I should say. They have scored 117 or more, and when facing division opponents, 17 division games, 14 of the 17 times they have scored 117 points or more. This is a Bucks team that's also allowed 117 points or more in 46 of 82 games this year, which is over 57%, not very good. Pacers have gone over the total in their last 5. And this year, when they've gone over the total in 3 or more consecutive games, in the following game, they've averaged 133.1 points per game. and that's 12 situations in which that's occurred. So I'm going to go Indiana here. I don't know if they're going to win the game, but I do like the chances of this being a more high-scoring contest. I know it's the playoffs, but Indiana's style is they're very good at speeding teams up. So I'm going to go over 116.5 on the Indiana Pacers. Doug, I'm sure you have an opinion because you followed the Milwaukee Bucks over the years. And what say you?
Yeah, well, actually, I like your pick there, Ross. I think that's on target because I do have one question though. But if by chance, if Indiana would only end up, let's just say, having under 20 free throws, would you say that's a conspiracy theory based on the NBA, or would you let that one go?
Not really. No, I wouldn't say that because the 32 is extremely high per game. I mean,
with you.
Because we've gone over this with the Lakers. I mean, they got 200 more free throws than anybody in the league. And my other cohorts, Mr. Schule and Mr. Higgs, say the NBA wants to see LA in the playoffs. The NBA wants LA to win because it's a big market and it's LeBron James. And my retort to that, and we're getting off subject here, but I want to touch upon my retort to that as I look at the Lakers style, and they earn their way to the free throw line. I mean, James is one of the best penetrators in the game. Anthony Davis gets fouled a lot. Anyway, go ahead.
And I agree. You know what? I agree with you, and I'll agree with your cohorts on the other days. The NBA wants them there. It doesn't mean they're going to get there, though. That's the difference. Okay, so want to. Nobody wanted the Texas Rangers to win the World Series and to play Arizona, but guess what? That's what happened. Anyway, so let's talk about the Bucks. The Bucks, Giannis is not supposed to play at least the first two games, maybe deeper. And if that's the case, Indiana's in a great spot to win the series. However, if he does come back, and there's still talk that he'll be back for game 3, and hopefully for their sake, it's close to 100%. Game 1 is the most important game, maybe of the series for the Bucks, is that they have to win game 1 because they've already lost several games this season to Indiana. If they lose another one on their home court, that Indiana will have so much confidence, no matter, even if Giannis does come back at that point, I don't think it matters. I think that in this case, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and Damian Lillard have to play lights out, and I think they do. And Ross, I think, I'll agree with you on the 117 points over, but I think the Bucks probably end up in the 120s, and they somehow get a victory because of the guys stepping up at home in front of a very loud crowd and take game 1.
Yeah, your reasoning is sound, and I don't disagree with that at all. So I've long contended, Chip, that when you're missing a player like Giannis, the supporting cast in the following game after having to play without him usually steps up big. And I agree with Doug. Desperation will definitely be on Milwaukee's side. I will say this, though. Even with Giannis, at this particular moment in time, and what I've witnessed over the last half of the season, and since Doc Rivers has taken over as head coach when they were 32-14 and they fired their coach, they've been 17-18 down the stretch or something like that. I personally am, and I might be on an island, I personally think right now Indiana is a better team than Milwaukee is, with or without Giannis. But Chipper, game 1 is what we're focusing on here. And what's your take here?
I think my first impression is that the loss of Giannis is going to affect the Bucks defensively more than anything else. Yeah. And these two teams have a history of going over. They've gone over 8 of the last 10 meetings. And, Milwaukee comes limping in. Like you said, they've only won 2. They're 2-8 in their last 10, or excuse me, they're 2-6 in their last 8. Meanwhile, Indiana, that team just continues to score. They've won 4 of the last 5. And their offense sometimes, what did they close the season with? 157 points? Was that
157, 115 against Atlanta.
This Halliburton to me is he reminds me of Brunson from the Knicks, where this is a guy that's a key factor for this team, and their scoring machines and their all-around play is great. I think this game, I hate to come with another total, but I think this game goes over the total easily. And my impression is because the Greek Freak is not there, and he's got an impact that way. And also, he does score, but Indiana's just a scoring machine out there. I think this game goes over the total. Their history says they go over. It's gone 8 of the last 10 have gone that route. So I'll play the Pacers and the Bucks to go over the total. And it's really an interesting thing what's going on with this Milwaukee team about under 500 since Rivers took over, and with the Greek being out, it sort of really dampens their spirits, I think, during the playoffs.
Yeah, again, I'm glad you brought that up, Chip, because too many people will look at it from the angle that Giannis is out and how many points he scores per game and how impactful he is on the offensive end of the floor, but they tend to forget that this guy's not a bad defensive player, and he blocks shots. And when he doesn't block shots, when you try to go to the hole, he affects shots, and that's a part of the game that people don't appreciate. They look at the blocks per game, but there's a lot of good defenders in this league that don't necessarily have a lot of blocks per game, but they affect the shots in the interior. So really good point there, Chipper. And, Doug, we talk about coaching and spacing, and I just think this Indiana team, when I watch them, and I'm not saying they're going to win the NBA title because they don't play good enough defense, okay? And that's their liability. Part of the reason with those defensive numbers, too, is they like to play fast, and they lure other teams into playing fast, and you're going to give up points when that happens. But, Doug, they're spacing on offense, especially down the stretch. And the way they share the basketball and their ability to knock down threes, not as high a rate as you would like, but it opens up the game for their penetration and their dishing and whatever have you. I don't know if you've watched them lately, but I've been really impressed with that aspect of their game. And their athleticism jumps off the screen at me, too.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, one of the most basic differences, you have a young team versus an older team. I mean, that's one of the things. And so you see better athletes coming from Indiana, just in general here. And the other thing, too, you mentioned about, the Bucks, that they had that 2 or 3 year run. And when Mike Boddicker was the coach, not Boddicker, Budenholzer. I can't even think of what it is, but Mike, let's go with Mike. When he was the coach there, defensively, their identity was protect the rim, guard the 3-point line. You want to take 2-point shots, they let you take them all day long. And if you made a good number of them, maybe you had a chance to win. But that's what they did. That identity has been lost. Lopez is no longer a big factor around the basket defensively. So they don't have that. Portis, a decent defender, but certainly barely above average. And then they just don't get out on the 3-ball anymore like they used to. So the coaching change has altered exactly how they play, and it hasn't been for the positive. So, I mean, Indiana is definitely a threat, as you mentioned, with or without Giannis to win the series. I still think some of their experience will help them, but they've gone out the last 2 years, I believe it is, or 2 of the last 3 years in the first round. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise if it happened again.
And Chip, was saying when Doug said Boddicker, he's going, that's the guy who pitched for the Orioles.
Mike Boddicker, I know. Baltimore Yankees.
He loves that nostalgia type of stuff,
Great control and breaking pitch, all I can tell you.
Former pitcher of the Baltimore Orioles. Yep. All right, so here's our official pick, guys. We are going with the Indiana Pacers for myself over their team total of 116.5. Chip Chirimbes likes the Suns and the Timberwolves to go under the total of 214 on Saturday, game 1 of that series. Doug, Saturday, game 1 of the series between the Magic and the Cavs. He says, take the Magic plus 4.5. And those are our 3 picks in the NBA. Chipper, there's a like button underneath. What should the folks out there do with the like button?
Me again. You're not getting me again. You only have to push it once. You only have to push it once.
If what we're referring to is the first time I did that with Chipper, he says, not only hit the like button once, but hit it twice. Well, if you hit it twice, it's not going to show up as a like. So in any event, hit that like button, folks. Just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put into bringing you a quality podcast 5 times a week. and making you a smarter sports better each and every day. Also, folks, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. As you can see, you're watching this show, you enjoy sports betting. We have some of the finest anywhere in the world right here in terms of sports betting experts, including us three, Jesse Schule, Sean Higgs, and various other handicappers we'll have in the future. But hit that subscribe button. And also, if you're on your PC, you won't see a subscribe button. You'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It serves the same purpose. Hit it. No strings attached. Absolutely 100% free. No catch. The only catch I really ask you to do, why should you hit the subscribe button? Well, if you take it one step further, you're going to your YouTube settings and you hit the alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel, we'll notify you right away whenever any of our podcasts are published. So you don't have to keep going back and forth to the channel. And Chip likes that because he likes things convenient. You know what I mean? Right, Chipper? Yeah, you know. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Doug, always a pleasure with you, my man. And you'll be back with us tomorrow on our live show with myself, Doug Upstone, and Sean Higgs. We'll be giving you 3 NBA playoff best bets. And also, folks, don't forget, you could chime in with all your questions and comments. Now's your time to chime in, 1 o'clock Eastern time live. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. Until the next time, for Chip Chirimbes, Doug Upstone, and Ross Benjamin, take care. God bless, folks.